This week's episode is in partnership with Intact Insurance, here for you and for everything you care about. Hello, everybody. Gosh, here we are. You are just joining us right now. It's the Jann Arden podcast. I'm here with Caitlin Green, Adam Karsh. Am I saying your last name right, Adam Karsh?
That's 100% correct. It is spelled C-H, K-A-R-C-H, but it's pronounced Karsh.
And what is the heritage of that last name?
I believe it's Polish if you go back a couple generations. And I think my great-great-grandfather, I think it was like Kars, like K-A-R-C-Z. And then when they came here, they changed it to Karsh.
Names are fascinating. They're fascinating.
My entire life, I've been explaining to everyone, it's spelled C-H, pronounced S-H.
I never knew that, actually, until right now.
There you go. We're 60 seconds in, and we've already learned something.
There you go.
And Caitlin Green is green. I believe that is the heritage of Greenland, correct? No.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's either green is pretty straightforward. It's either with an E on the end or without it. And I think my family name goes back to like Quakers. Like I feel like they were Quakers that left Ireland and landed on the shores of somewhere in the Maritimes, and then made their way west from there. So I don't know. I think
what is a Quaker?
You know, is
it a religious sect? Should we Google it?
If I wasn't on a Zoom, I would Google it right now.
Okay, well, we'll worry about that for another show. But anyway, that's very interesting. Yeah. I think they were not dissimilar to the Mormons.
Oh, okay. So there you go.
But I could be completely wrong. People are going to be going, your show's not even factual.
If they were Mormons, then they're disappointed in me.
Well, speaking of Mormons, which we're not. So people are talking about how we go forward the next time we have to quarantine, which everybody is pretty much saying, listen, it probably is going to happen. Big wave hits, coronavirus is out there, and they want to lock us down for 2, 3, 4 weeks again. So now in the Netherlands, formerly known as Holland, for you folks that want to know what we're talking about, the government in the Netherlands are saying, listen, this time we're locked down, you need a sex buddy.
Yes.
So everybody, grab a sex buddy, and then you're locked down with them, for the 4 weeks. You guys can make pannenkoeken and have coffee that you can stand a spoon up in, and biscuits, and you can have sex with someone in quarantine. Thoughts?
I think that this is quite practical, but it's also a very, it seems like how very Amsterdam of them to have suggested this. It's funny, I was in Amsterdam last summer on holiday, and they're as progressive as a society could possibly come. So I'm not surprised the government's saying this. I feel like it makes sense. I don't know if maybe you'd have to do a bubble where like you and your sex partner you can still each stay at your own place. You don't have to be together for the full time, but that you're not seeing like anybody else. Maybe that's what they're suggesting. Like my friends who are single, gotta say, a lot of them have had to find an arrangement of some sort because you just can't possibly go. I mean, not like you can't, but it's hard when you're interested in dating and you find someone you like. How do you just not see them for 2 months? Like it's tough.
Well, we've talked about this before, that the apps, the dating apps, have gone forward to some capacity of people having conversations, people still swiping, and people absolutely still hooking up. Because I talked to a friend of mine that said, oh yeah, there's absolutely hookups going on.
Tons.
So I guess people are willing to waive. I mean, if there was ever a way of contracting a virus that depends on moisture, as our prime minister would say, being in close proximity of a human being, breathing in their air and touching surfaces, I would think that the act of sex of any description, be it oral, doesn't have to be intercourse. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Jann Arden Sex Show.
Oh, it reminds me of, remember Sex with Sue?
Yes. He was great.
She was great. I remembered her. She would always talk about oral sex in a very, very matter-of-fact way, and this just gave me a big Sex with Sue throwback.
She came to my school. I remember.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, I bet you remember, Adam. Well, I mean, it seems like the most prominent sex therapists, the voices of our generations, were Dr. Ruth Westheimer, who is a 4'0" Jewish woman who survived the Holocaust, who spoke very candidly about sex and sexuality. She didn't pull any punches. And like you said, Sue, Dr. Sue, who we all watched. I remember watching her on a black and white television at my parents' house in the 80s.
Oh my God, I used to get such a kick out of her. She was so matter of fact. And you're right, Adam, she would do the university rounds. So she was paid to come and appear at a lot of Frosh weeks, the first week of university. And the idea was that they knew all these university students are out of their mom and dad's house, and they're at obviously greater risk of having some unsafe sex. So they would bring out Sex with Sue, and she'd do all these speaking tours. And I wonder how she would probably be in favor of the Dutch sex buddies. I don't know. I think she would like it.
Well, I mean, people are misinformed about sex and sexuality. There's absolutely no doubt there. I remember right after we graduated, three of my girlfriends, we went to Oahu. I think we spent like $500 on flight and hotel for like 8 days. And one of my girlfriends, it was all innocent enough. We went to, this dance. We had blue drinks, blue Hawaiis. And anyway, this young fellow ended up being quite excited. Nothing happened. They didn't have intercourse. I don't even think anyone was nude, but he had an erection. And apparently, my friend felt that, his pants touched her leg, and it was, everyone was embarrassed. Yeah. There was so much embarrassment and lack of knowledge going on. Anyway, the next day, the four of us knuckleheads, 18 years old we were, from Springbank, Alberta, went and got a pregnancy test.
Oh my God.
From the drugstore. So she was scared. We were all like, well, do you think it could have gotten anywhere? I mean, when we still laugh so hard at that experience, and just how awkward and how the fear. But you know what? Here we are, lack of education, no one telling us anything. And the poor guy, who liked my friend so much that just literally couldn't control himself.
Kids now, not kids, but like younger people now, you just swipe through your phone. You just swipe through all the X-rated photos on your phone and decide who you want to see in real life. And it's so like, that's a big, I'm like, what a nice throwback, cozy story you have. Cause I feel like there's been
they can get any information they want now. You can punch in, if guy has, blah, 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 and it's on my pants, can I get pregnant? And the Google search would come up with probably 100 things. Here's what we found.
Yeah.
It would be no, no, and no. That's money we could have spent on tacos, but, anyway, obviously it was negative, but I do think of those naive times. And were they better times? Like what's your opinion on that, Caitlin? Like when you think about growing up in high school, like let's set all the COVID stuff aside for a second, but just, do you think it's easier for kids growing up now, or do you think you had it easier?
Oh, I had it so much easier. I was like the last chunk of kids, I think, that went to school, and we didn't have social media on our phones. We didn't have high quality cameras on our phones. So every mistake you made, every embarrassing outfit you wore, every time you were drunk at a party, it wasn't documented on 1,000 people's phones, posted on social media, and then it's out there beyond your control. And like kids in my high school, like, I mean, they were vicious. Like I remember when chat boards became a thing where people could post like a chat topic and then it would turn into like a thread that everybody could comment on.
So would that have been MySpace more or less? What was the platforms?
It wasn't a known platform. Like I felt like there were so many of these things that were just floating around, and somebody would just share a link to one and everybody would start posting just the meanest rumors and horrible gossip about everybody at our school. They had to have like a whole school meeting, like people going in with the principal because of all these rumors that were starting. Like the poor teachers like their heads were just on like a swivel. They just didn't have any idea what to do. And we weren't even dealing with the same level of technology in the palm of our hands by any means that kids today are now. So I look back on that and think, I'm happy I made it out when we still mostly took photos with a disposable camera. Like,
yeah,
I think it's a lot easier.
I think every generation faces a completely new and unique set of obstacles and challenges. I was working out this morning. Trust me, it's nothing to write home about. I'm not going to show you videos of me picking up a kettlebell or whatever those are called and balancing on two toes. But anyway, I was looking at this history show about a siege of it was religious problems, Christians and Muslims somewhere in Israel, 13th century, and the way they fought this bloody war around this one castle for 2.5 years. And I was thinking about that, interjecting that scenario in where we are today, when we see the unrest in different countries, when we see people on very opposite sides of the fence. Comparatively, I know it's very hard to look at something 800 years apart, but I think we are a much better people. I think we are much more diplomatic, Caitlin, than literally people fighting and being so brutal to each other for 2.5 years around a castle.
Yeah, I think it's gotten a lot better. And sometimes it is interesting to look back at those really difficult moments and say, this lasted for 2 years around a dang castle. So now when you look at the scenario we're in, we've come a long way and we can get through it. And you kind of, not that you need those bad moments, but maybe you do. Maybe you have to look back on tough times and say, we made it through that, we'll make it through this, and we'll learn a lot more about ourselves in the process.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Jann Arden podcast is what you're listening to, and we've just been talking about, every generation facing their own unique challenges. And Adam, on the break, you were just talking about, thank God that when you were growing up, that there wasn't smartphones. There wasn't that kind of immediacy. And Caitlin touched on that. Like, thank God there wasn't pictures of you barfing in a garbage can that would be permanently on the internet for your kids to look up.
Hey, how did you get that footage?
25 years later. But I mean, that's the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
That what kids are doing now, their children are going to have access to.
Oh, it stresses me out.
I thank God that back in my day, high school, even university, no smartphones, no social media, and believe me, I'm all for tech. I'm all for social media. I'm all for high quality cameras on smartphones. I'm all for that now, but I'm responsible and I know how to deal with it and manage it and use it. But back in the day, I did stupid things. I don't want documented proof of that. I don't want anything to end up online. I'm glad there was nothing for me to post online stupidly that I would regret later. So I'm very, very happy that that was not part of my existence back in the day. Thank God.
So hypothetically, your daughters, let's say that they could look up things that mom and dad did. How would you feel about them having access to those kinds of, and I can't imagine you doing anything that bad, Adam.
No, I'm a pretty good boy. And even then, I'll even say this. So I joined Facebook in 2007. And I think also because I had a much smaller network of friends and it was just my close buddies.
You had no kids yet?
No kids. And it was a new platform for all of us. And I was pretty liberal about what I shared or posted. Nothing untoward by any means, but I was fairly liberal. And then I remember a few years ago, I went through my feed, my comments, my pictures, and I cleaned up a whole bunch of stuff because I'm like, I don't want that out there. That was a stupid comment. That could be taken the wrong way.
Yeah.
That looks I was trying to be funny. It comes across as sarcastic, and if you know me, then you would see the humor in it. But if you don't, and somebody just read, and I'm very sensitive, so it's like, I don't want someone to read into that I meant that way because I didn't. So I just took down everything that was questionable.
Have you taken down stuff, Caitlin?
So much. Oh my gosh. I did.
Hey, think about your answer for a second. Really?
Because same exact thing, Adam, where I just thought to myself, I was younger, I've changed. And also, I think I've become more educated about privacy. I've become more educated about how a lot of these social media companies use your images and your content, how they mine your data. And I just thought, I'm going to pull a bunch of this off. And also, like, I work on a morning show in Toronto. So to a degree, people kind of know who you are sometimes if they listen to the show. So I just wanted to clean some of that up. Look, nothing is worse than when you watch somebody like even like Camila Cabello. I think she's had her name dragged through this process before because she posted really insensitive, crappy tweets when she was younger. And she that's probably not a reflection of who she is today at all. She was just guilty of being young and dumb like the rest of us, but she had access to social media. And that is why now, like, Adam, you must think about this with your girls. Like, it's a full education. Like, you have to educate them like anything, like history or geography, about technology, how to use it, and the far-reaching things that can happen to you in a bad way if you put too much of yourself out there.
We talk, my oldest daughter, we do talk about how it's so important what you post and what you share, and that once it's out there, and somebody can take it and do what they want with it. They can misconstrue it. They can, it's so scary. I mean, they're not really on social media, but
having said all that, though, you guys, here's the three of us saying, oh my gosh, absolutely have said stupid things, absolutely have had different political affiliations, have absolutely said things that, could be misconstrued as, kind of a little bit racist or very distasteful or mean-spirited. Having said all those things, would it not behoove us all to be kinder to each other and to be able to look at people that do say things and go, oh, I did that too. But no one ever steps back and goes, I did that as well. I spoke out of turn. That's what I don't get about how we treat each other.
Yeah.
Like suddenly, people that throw these opinions out, and we've talked about cancel culture before, are so ready to say, oh, I can't believe he said that, when they know full well if their information was put on a table like a buffet and sifted through, you would see dozens, if not hundreds, of misspoken things, misspoken actions. So that's what I don't get.
Yeah, it's, and I don't know if you guys caught any of this, but it was an interview that made the rounds. There is a really like a kind of currently infamous food writer who's very talented. Her name's Alison Roman. She's got 2 excellent cookbooks out, and she made some comments that could be seen as disparaging, but they were very much just her opinion about Chrissy Teigen and Chrissy Teigen's cooking brand and whatever. Anyways, Chrissy Teigen winds up tweeting her response directly to Alison Roman, saying she was really hurt because she was a fan of Alison's. And she felt like the remarks that Alison made about her branding and the direction of her career were kind of careless and thoughtless. Anyways, everyone piles on. And now not only Chrissy Teigen, but Alison Roman, both of them are professionally like kind of paying the price. Like I think Alison Roman, her connection to the New York Times has been walked back in some way. Chrissy Teigen gets a bunch of hate lobbed at her online. And again, it's totally because I feel like there isn't any wiggle room right now for people to simply just say, I messed up. I said the wrong thing. I apologize. Can you give me a second chance? It's harder than ever because there's so much evidence of everything you do online on people's phones. And I don't think people saw that much of what any of us said or thought until the last, 5 to 10 years. Like I would never have known what Chrissy Teigen thought about anything if it wasn't for Twitter, it wasn't for these platforms.
Well, I think even having this platform, like what we're all listening to here today, the podcast, is that we do need to be more forgiving. This is not new messaging. This is not a new revelation. So to all of us listening right now, I think there has never been a better time to take a step back, count to at least 5 1,000 guys. And just before you pass any judgment, do what you would expect people to do for you, which is give you a bit of a break. We got some fun stuff coming up, so stay with us. You're listening to the Jann Arden podcast. I'm with Adam and Caitlin, and we're going to come back right after this. Caitlin is speaking to us now. She's in her condominium in Toronto. Yep. Adam is in his basement office in Toronto. I am in Springbank, Alberta. And through the magic of technology, we're all in the Zoom room recording this podcast for your listening enjoyment. I've heard lots of great stories from you wonderful listeners about taking us with you on your walks, taking us with you when you lie down at night before you go to sleep, taking us with you on drives in your car, taking us with you on, just sitting in a chair and looking out onto the street to see what's going on. So we thank you, all of our team at the Jann Arden podcast, and we hope that, these last 10 weeks especially have provided you with a bit of laughter and a little bit of information and a little bit of gossip, and hopefully that you feel connected, that we're all having a very, very shared experience. So we thank you very much for listening. Okay. What the hell do you guys have in your fridges?
Because you bought some weird stuff when lockdown began,
yes.
and it might still be there. And this is the thing: like, what did we all buy? And my weird thing that I really stockpiled on at the time, and that I haven't consumed, and I honestly don't know that I'll ever consume.
I'm scared.
It's canned beans and like marinated like artichokes and stuff. And like, I'll find some way to use them, but like, I bought an inordinate amount of like these. It's like
Heinz vegetarian beans. And we are looking for a sponsor.
We are. And like, I stockpiled on canned goods and canned beans. I don't know what I thought was going to happen, if this was going to be like an apocalypse, but I freaked out like everybody else. I have like a bunch of
the beans were annihilated. The beans, the lentils, the dried lentils, the legumes of any kind. The only thing left standing was vegan cheese, was the entire section of vegan cheese. Okay, those are artichoke hearts. I love those. I would have eaten those on day 3. Very good on pizzas, very good in a stew. Artichokes are fantastic.
Yeah. And so like, now I'm looking at my fridge and I'm thinking it's a lot of pickled, like my pickled section of my fridge is stocked.
Well, you were thinking what's going to stay kind of like anything fermented. If my husband and I are in the condo for, the next 5 years, we will have sauerkraut forever.
Yep. That's the plan. So I think, and like, look at how much baking did I think I was going to do? Look at all this butter. Like, how much butter did I think I was going to need?
Well, you can never, people will go through that. That's a staple. I'll tell you right now, if you had one child, if you and your husband had a child, that butter would be gone in a day.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the way your pantry looks, as opposed to, let's say, Adam, I'm going to go to you because you have 2 girls and they're under the age of 10, and you have a wife that, probably has different culinary tastes than you. So what do you have?
So my wife is the baker and I'm the cook. Okay. Just in terms of takes care of what we have. And again, 2 girls at home. We're making every single meal. So it's 3 meals a day times 4. We are going
and snacks
and snacks. So much chips. Like, the girls eat healthy too, but tons of chips and tons of granola bars. Like, tons. Can't keep them in stock. A ton of milk. A ton of eggs. Tons of eggs. We go through like almost 3 dozen eggs a week.
So 4 of you. So 36 eggs for 4. That's not terrible because, like you said, your wife is baking.
Right.
Baking involves a lot of eggs.
Totally.
I don't use any eggs because I'm vegan. So I just replace eggs with like a flax egg. But you can't eat a hard-boiled cup of flax.
No. And and flour. So I've typically been buying like whatever the 3 kilogram bag of flour. Because again, my wife is baking up a storm now.
And flour's back now, Adam. Flour is back on the shelves.
It's totally back.
Yeah, we've seen that replenish itself. But there was probably 6 weeks where people were dealing very clandestine-like in back alleyways, exchanging Tupperware vats of flour. I'll give you flour if you give me yeast.
Yeah.
If you've just joined us, that did not sound good. Considering no, I'm not even going to go there. So yeah, it's everyone's so different. I think much like you, Caitlin, I bought beans. Obviously I don't buy any meat, so that was never a concern for me. Is buying any kind of animal protein stuff in that regard. But I did, but vegans, we want to get our protein from somewhere. So yeah, I was buying, a lot of like soy stuff and satans and, vegan sausages and all that kinds of stuff. But I found it super easy because no one touched it. Like no one was really going there. So I think, it's been interesting. Cereal, I bought quite a bit of cereal.
Yeah.
There's like 6 boxes in my pantry now that I'm going, I'm not going to eat a bowl of cereal every day. It's not something that I readily use a lot of, but I bought it because it was there.
Yeah. And I think that I fully my brain went to like all the time. My brain just goes to like worst case scenario. So I just imagined a situation where grocery stores are closed for a month and I'm living off of like, I had no idea what was going to happen. So I just started every time
Nobody
I went.
did.
No. And like, I freaked out and I verge a little bit on, what do you call it? The people who are like addicted to like preparedness, like the doomsday preparedness people.
I think we can just go with that. I think we can go with you're a doomsday preparedness person.
Yeah. And I veer a little bit that way. Like if I ever came into a ton of money, I got to say, I would definitely probably have like a hideaway in the woods. Like I'd be the kind of person who might think it was smart to get
like underground in a cul-de-sac, one of those big steel drums.
Like not ruling it out. Like, so for me, I'm already a little wired that way. I get annoyed that I don't have a generator. I think, what if the power went? Like, anyways, all to say that's a look inside my brain. So that's why I bought all these stupid beans. And now I'm realizing like how many cans of beans do 2 people need in one small condo in Toronto? Like my husband thinks I've lost it.
Well, I mean, they're handy. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I'm eating a lot of things that I grew up with. That's what I've really found. Nothing fancy. I've certainly cooked myself a couple of nice meals throughout this, but I'm out here by myself with my dog. And, but I've been doing like the beans on toast is something that has been a go-to. I'm sitting here, I'm feeling a bit of blue. I will open a can of beans.
Yep.
And I'll just make some toast and I'll throw that on there with maybe some mushrooms on toast I've been having.
That's good.
There's nothing like, literally dicing up some white button mushrooms with some vegan butter and throwing that on a hunk of bread. So things that have been, super simple. Beans on a baked potato. I know it kind of gets carby, but you're getting, like I've even had like a scoopful of lentils with some, barbecue sauce. I know this sounds god awful, but I was throwing that on a potato with salt and pepper, and I found it very satisfying.
Yeah, but you also make like a double layer chocolate peanut butter cake. So I feel like you go back and forth between like the potato and then the high end.
That was the one time. And I've made a banana cream pie. I actually just made another one this morning. But I give it to people. Like I had a guy in my yard coming to try and figure out how I can use my mom and dad's old well to water my garden. And so I'll put a piece of pie in a foil and set it on the hood of his truck and let him go take it. So I find that I'm baking cookies, but for other people. Like I'm like, oh, my friend Donna would like these. Or, but food has been, I think, so important during this time.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
And we've all become very aware of food insecurity. And I have to say, in our country, anyway, Canada, boy, it's been heartwarming to see this community effort, people stepping up to make sure that we all have something to eat. I shout out to my friend Julie Van Rosendahl, who is a real foodie in Calgary. She writes for the Globe and Mail. She's very active on the food scene. Boy, she has single-handedly done so much. They've provided thousands and thousands and thousands of school lunches because when the schools shut down, many of those kids lost 2 meals a day that they really depend on. And to me, wow, I've been kind of been proud to be a human being to see people step up to think of all the have-nots. What about the people that don't have a frickin' choice to buy artichokes and beans or toast or go out and buy flour? They're literally opening a fridge with nothing in it. And we all need to be vigilant about making sure that our neighbors have food. And I know that most of us are doing it, but, get out there and check to make sure your people a few doors down, folks, have what they need.
I'm going to go donate all my beans now.
Well, not a terrible idea if you're not using them. Boy, there's food banks.
Yes.
That can absolutely use that. But yeah, so many good things have come out of this. I think our awareness, for me, you guys, did you not become acutely aware of food waste?
I became acutely aware of like any waste. Absolutely. I second that wholeheartedly.
Well, we're going to come back. We'll touch on that, and then we're going to touch on drinking alcohol when we come back. You're listening to the Jann Arden Podcast. Welcome back to the Jann Arden Podcast. Just before the break, we were talking about me personally. I've become so aware of food waste. And Adam on the break was saying, okay, if it comes to a 99-cent box of mac and cheese, and I have a little bit left on the girls' plates, this is what you were saying, Adam, You'll chuck that out. But let me tell you what you can do with that.
Okay, please.
And you will rethink this entirely. It's your children, so a little bit of goober's not going to hurt.
I don't mind. I eat their goobers all the time.
Okay, put that leftover mac and cheese in a grilled cheese sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
So you have your bread, you put your cheese in there, whatever, and you put the mac and cheese in that, and then you do a normal grilled cheese sandwich. It is so good. I used to eat that in my college days. Have you never had a grilled mac and cheese sandwich?
Never.
I've seen it. I've totally seen it on Instagram.
Oh my gosh.
But I would do that in a second.
Anyway, food waste has just been, I'm ashamed to say that, and I compost, and I guess in my mind, I always felt like, oh, I'm composting, so it's not that bad. But, that really doesn't solve the problem of buying more than you need.
No, it's just about figuring out what to buy, like figuring out how much food you actually need to eat. And for me, it's been a process of, trial and failure, because nothing hurts more than throwing away some like perfectly good food, really. And that's what spurred the banana bread craze really during quarantine, is that nobody wants to throw away their bananas. Like, why not freeze them and turn them into banana bread?
Well, freeze them and put them in a smoothie. And I'll tell you what, another thing that you can freeze too, and people don't know this, is spinach. If you've got spinach, and we all look at the dates on a bag and we freak out if it's 2 days, take your bag of spinach. If you're worried about getting close to the, you must consume by this time, chuck it in the freezer. Yes, it's crumbly, but you can throw it in soups. You can throw it in your smoothies. You can chuck it in anything. Same with kale. Same with any of those leafy greens. And I don't know about you, but I've been making soups like old Mother Hubbard. You'd think I was cooking for a fire hall over here.
I do that with all our fruit. There's pretty much no fruit that goes bad in our fridge, because if it's starting to look like it's either not going to get eaten or that it's like getting a little, starting to turn, it goes in a bag in the freezer and gets repurposed in a smoothie. So we're pretty much like no fruit.
Yeah.
None. Zero fruit is wasted.
But I think we've all learned from that, Adam. I think we're all learning. And like you said, Caitlin, how much do you buy? And it was trial and failure. When this first started, 2.5 months ago, the beginning of March, all the food people were buying, and then they're like, holy crap, what do we do with this? Yeah. And so we are learning. And I don't think our relationship with food will ever be the same going forward. We are so much more aware of where it comes from, who is responsible for getting it picked from a field onto a truck, onto a boat, onto a plane. In that regard, I think it has been a very eye-opening process for us to see where our food comes from. And we'll touch lightly on the meat proteins as well. I think we've all had our eyes opened as to, meat, the fine balance of how it ends up on our table. I mean, you have millions of animals being culled right now because of the slaughterhouses being shut down. I'm not going to dwell on this because I don't want to be a downer, but it's a shame to see how fragile the system is when you're seeing 4 million chickens last week that are being buried in mass graves or ground up, millions of pigs, millions of cows, because there's no place to process them. Anyway.
Well, and you talk about, really though, you're talking about another version of waste, right?
Yes.
So it's another version of waste.
But there's souls involved with this kind of waste. It's not any kind of food waste. I mean, these are sentient beings that deserve much better treatment by us. If we're going to eat them, it just shouldn't. And a lot of people are finding out, we don't need to eat that much meat. We don't need to have it 6 days a week. But watching that unfold this last month, guys, for me has been really heartbreaking. To see those animals that didn't have great lives to begin with, and that's how it's ended. Anyhow, moving on, we've talked a little bit about alcohol consumption during this period. How do you guys feel like you've done in casual drinking, and has your habits changed? Caitlin's laughing. Are you drinking more alcohol?
So much more alcohol, and but not just I don't even know that it's necessarily quantity so much as it is the time and the care that I'm putting into, researching cocktails and buying cocktail accoutrement, buying real maraschino cherries because I all of a sudden like old fashions, buying a cocktail shaker so that you can actually make a martini or a margarita. I mean, before this, I felt like I was so busy and my husband was so busy that the majority of alcohol we consumed was out of the house. And now we actually had to make a little makeshift bar in our television console, which I'm showing you guys right now. And look at the top. So see the top, there's a giant jar. I've got a giant jar and then pineapple.
And what is that?
And what we started doing is you cut up pineapple and you put it in the jar and you let it soak with vodka for 14 days.
Oh,
and
my Lord.
And you make something called a Stoli Doli. And it's the name of a famous type of martini from a restaurant in New York. And you just shake it up and you pour it over ice, and it tastes like vacation in the glass. You barely know there's alcohol in it, but it's all alcohol. So it's a bit of a head taker offer. And it's the kind of thing you have for me on a Friday at 6 p.m. I just can't wait. And it's bad because I'm building a little bit of a romantic Mad Men level relationship with cocktail making.
Well, you're seeing, food celebrities like Ina Garten, making martinis online and showing people how to make one and sipping it. And it's getting 100 million hits of people watching somebody. Who was it that it was a guy, an actor?
Okay, I was just thinking of him, and I also forgot his name.
Stanley Tucci. Stanley Tucci was making, I don't know if it was Manhattans or something, but millions and millions of hits of him making a cocktail. Are you drinking more, Adam?
I am totally drinking more.
What are you? Is it wine, beer? What are you doing?
I'm a wine, scotch, and vodka guy. Not all in the same.
No.
But and it's not that I'm at any point in the day fall down drunk or blackout drunk. It is not that at all. But at 2:00 in the afternoon, when I'm working on one of the shows, maybe I have a little glass of scotch while I'm putting it together because I can, and I'm home, and it's stressful sometimes. So I would never do that during the day at the radio station, but I'm home. I'm sitting with a nice glass of wine, and I'm putting the Jann Arden podcast together. And if I ever actually do go back into the radio station, I'm putting it in my contract that I need a little mini bar in my studio.
Well, I don't think you're going to get that, but you can try, Adam. So do you think across the board people are dealing with it much the way that you guys are? Are you talking to your friends, seeing a little bit more alcohol consumption? With everybody. I mean, obviously they left liquor stores open this entire time, and rightly so when you're talking about people with actual dependencies, and alcohol is a true dependency for anyone that has an alcohol addiction. You can get very sick without it. So I think that was very smart of them to do. And the fact that people do need to have some kind of enjoyment. But anyone that I've talked to, they figure they're drinking 50% more than they did before going into this. That feels like a lot to me, but could it be more than half of what you normally drink?
I'd say it's at least 30% more. And mostly because, again, for me, my hours being as early of a start as I normally have on the morning show I work on, honestly, during the week prior to this, I never touched alcohol until the weekend. Almost never. I'd have a beer at most. Now, I just find because work almost never ends, because working from home means that you're living in your office. So I will just, to offset some of that and to create a little boundary in my mind, I'll say to myself, 4 p.m.'s cocktail hour. And then I make myself a Negroni. It's almost like a little celebration that, hey, the workday's done and now my regular life begins. But I never would have done that before.
Are you drinking every day?
No, there's at least 2 days a week where I won't drink.
Okay, are you making a conscious effort to go, I'm not drinking today?
No, I think 2 days a week, I genuinely don't feel like it. And if I want something, I like the effervescence of a beer, and I'll have just soda water instead. I'm usually just, I don't feel like it. But it used to be that 2 days a week I would drink and 5 days a week I wouldn't. And now it's the reverse. It's 5 days a week I drink and 2 days a week I wouldn't. And like Adam, I'm not ever getting intoxicated to the point of, falling down drunk at home or anything. But
I love how you guys are reconciling this, saying, listen, I'm not falling down, I'm not blacking out, I'm not driving the car. Like all these caveats that you're putting in to go, this is how I can reconcile drinking what I'm drinking.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, I don't want to paint a picture of me at home like Anna Nicole Smith of like, rest in peace, but I'm, but it's just one of those situations where it is noteworthy. Like it's noteworthy that I'm drinking more.
Any
Adam?
glass of wine that I have before 5 o'clock, I call it grape juice, so I don't feel like I have a problem.
Well, I mean, I think we need to be easy on ourselves. I feel like people are going to absolutely go back to life as it were. You're simply not going to have the time. You're going to be driving to work for an hour every day, or getting back, or parking your car, or, in meetings. I think this is a very temporary thing, and I hope people are easy on themselves. I keep hearing about the quarantine 15, people putting on weight. And, just as we wrap up this show, I hope everyone listening realizes that stuff that you're doing now, whether you're not exercising regularly, or you're eating more freaking bread, or you're having the extra glass of wine or the beer every night, please be gentle on yourselves. Please don't lie in bed and punish yourselves for the newness of whatever the hell this is. Do you feel the same way, Caitlin? Like, just be easy on yourselves.
If I see one more meme being like, Shakespeare wrote 5 of his masterpieces, and give me a break. I'm not Shakespeare, and I'm not going to be. So I know my own limits, and I'm going to eat peanut butter and jam sandwiches if I feel like it. And I feel like I'm like, well, maybe there's more of me to love, and bathing suit season will look a little different this year, but more than ever, just, hey, feel grateful that you're at home and you're feeling good at all, ever, even for an hour of the day, and enjoy the martini. I mean, maybe that's enabling behavior, but
no, be easy on yourself. Stay safe, stay well, stay home when you can. We say adios and toodly-doo from the Jann Arden podcast. Thanks for listening.